Welcome to Considerations for Individualized Education Program, IEP Literacy Goals within a multi-tiered system of support. My name is Sharon Hoffert, and I'm a professional implementation coach with Oregon Response to Instruction and Intervention housed at Northwest Regional ESD. I was a K-5 classroom teacher for 25 years before becoming an interventionist and instructional coach. I'm also the mama of a child who qualified for an IEP in elementary school due to a specified learning disability, dyslexia. I am passionate about supporting all educators with tools and resources to support our students in their literacy journey. My colleague Mallory Turner will introduce herself now before we get started with this video module.
My name is Mallory Turner, and I'm the Special Education Professional Learning Coach, Traumatic Brain Injury Liaison, and Regional Technical Assistance Provider at Northwest Regional ESD. I have my Master's of Arts in Teaching and Special Education and have a previous background working as a special educational assistant and a special education teacher. In my current role, I support special educators, specialists, and directors by providing professional learning opportunities and technical assistance in their roles.
Our goal for this module is to provide your district with some thoughtful considerations related to how to best support students with reading IEPs across tiers of instruction. None of these considerations are have-tos, but rather provide opportunities for thoughtful discussion. Our learning targets today are to reflect and discuss how a student with an individualized education program, IEP, is supported across each level through instruction and accommodations, and to determine appropriate methods of data collection and communication to support positive student growth through progress monitoring. Collective efficacy has a high effect size, and this requires more than just a belief system, but rather the actual steps that are necessary in order to best support positive literacy growth for all students. We know that everyone in our school settings are working hard to support our students and want to provide opportunities for discussions on how to continue to create space for reflection and response to meeting the literacy needs of students with IEPs. An MTSS framework looks at the whole child and addresses the support that is necessary for literacy success across all tiers of instruction. The goal is to provide the right level of support to the right students at the right time. When an effective MTSS is in place, all students experience strong Tier 1 evidence-based literacy instruction and have access to Tier 2 support before receiving Tier 3 instruction and potentially a literacy IEP. It is important to ensure that districts have an inclusive and equitable culture grounded in the foundational belief that 95+% of our students can effectively be taught to read, that there are district and school infrastructure and capacity to support effective installation, implementation, and sustainability of multi-tiered systems, including resource allocation, professional learning, and coaching provided to staff, the development of standards of practice, and effective leadership. This also means that community and family partnerships are established to help ensure student and family voice is included in the building, implementing, and ongoing improvement of our system of support for literacy development. Beyond this, it is important that data is being used thoughtfully to allow for collaborative planning and implementation of strong instruction across the tiers. Students who qualify for a literacy-based IEP need many opportunities to practice specific skills and benefit from all involved staff working together to provide this support. When having discussions about what this can look like across the tiers, this slide can be helpful. We start by thinking about each learner and the contributing factors that influence positive growth. Then we look at the instruction that is being provided in all tiers, recognizing that systematic and explicit instructional routines are helpful to our striving readers. Opportunities to respond and practice are key. When thinking about curriculums, it is valuable to reflect on how different curriculums are used to support students in mastering skills. We want our students to be able to focus on what is being taught rather than trying to navigate different instructional strategies that can conflict with others, such as how gestures might be used to practice specific skills. Finally, we know that building strong positive connections in classroom communities support the different needs of our learners and is vitally important to positive growth. When thinking about instructional tiers for literacy, we included this slide on all of the tiers to help facilitate conversations about the overlaps and levels of support students may encounter throughout the day. We will break down these tiers of support throughout the video module, recognizing that all students should ideally receive Tier 1 instruction for 90+ minutes a day in both whole and small group, with additional opportunities for practice with specific skills throughout the day.
Tier 3, in considering IEP goals specifically, IEP teams should determine the priorities for the student's education to allow access to the general education curriculum, given the unique needs that arise from their disability. It is important to consider how we plan to provide access and what foundational skills the student has. When thinking about what literacy goal to write for a student with an IEP, the team should ensure that the goal is in alignment with the baseline data and the present levels of performance outlined in that student's IEP. When formulating a literacy IEP goal, one option is to consider basing it on a state standard, if applicable. Rather than copying the standard, we can break the standard down into skills, as you see on the screen here. Here is an example of a second grade phonics and word recognition IEP goal at the bottom. Given a second grade level reading prompt, student will decode regularly spelled 2-syllable words with long vowels with 90% accuracy in 3 out of 4 opportunities as measured by teacher observation and data tracking sheet. Students with IEPs receive specially designed instruction. This specially designed instruction is provided to students to be in alignment with their IEP goals. SDI is when direct instruction, opportunities for practice, and assessment of student learning are adapted to meet the unique needs that result from a student's disability. SDI is typically delivered by the special education teacher or related service provider, but may be delivered by another educator provider based on the unique needs of that child. The person providing the SDI should have adequate training and expertise to be able to deliver the services, be able to implement evidence-based practices with fidelity, and be able to collect and analyze the data and make data-based decisions. Here on the screen, you'll see an example of how SDI might or could look for a student with a literacy goal on their IEP, breaking it down into different sections. Direct instruction for 15 minutes, supported practice for 20, informal assessment for 10, which might look like 45 minutes per day provided by that SPED case manager during a pull-out group. In Tier 3, if a student has an IEP, they will also have IEP accommodations to support them in achieving their IEP goals. Some of these might include large print, repeated directions, highlighting materials, preferential seating, or extended time on tests.
We included Tier 2 in considerations for several reasons. We know that students on IEPs often don't receive Tier 2 instruction, but there are some considerations that might be helpful when thinking about MTSS and how to best support our learners. Many students on IEPs will have received this specially designed instruction during Tier 2 before qualifying for an IEP. Some questions to consider are: what was working well in this space, and how can we continue to capitalize on this? What programs or supports are ideal to mirror that specially designed instruction? Are there students who benefit from that same level of support within Tier 2, and can we be creative about how we utilize the time we have with our students? This may not be possible within all school district systems, but is worth the wonder. It's also too important to consider how to provide time for the reading specialist and learning specialist to collaborate, as they are both experts in providing high-quality, evidence-based literacy instruction. Another consideration we want to raise is the idea of the learning specialist having opportunities to share growth data in order for all team members to be involved in decision-making. This could happen during an intervention review meeting. Tier 1 considerations go back to the idea of collective efficacy and the power of intensification for students who need opportunities to practice skills. This can be somewhat dependent on grade level, but are there opportunities for practice of specific skills within core instruction? As a former classroom teacher, I often had students who were not on IEPs but needed a lot of opportunities to have additional practice with specific skills that I could address during small group. Knowing what is happening in a special education room and giving opportunities for practice is ideal for our striving readers. In an intermediate grade, an example of whole group practice could be a quick phonemic awareness warm-up and phonics review before word study time. For example, the word is invention. Break this word up into its syllables. Invention. Draw 3 lines on your whiteboard. Write each part. Identify the vowels. This is a quick and easy way to show the connections between a specific skill a student is working on in a targeted space and their classroom. It hurts nobody and can create a powerful review for all students. To sum up, we want to consider how we are best supporting literacy growth. What resources are available in our school buildings across the tiers? What methods are being used, and how do we give opportunities for those methods to be used in lots of different spaces? And are there specific opportunities for students to practice targeted skills in order to master literacy growth? We've included a pausing point in our video to allow you to stop and have some time to talk about what we've suggested so far. Take a few minutes to discuss what shifts in practice would be beneficial to support IEP goals outside the designated specially designed instruction time. How would we implement these shifts in practice? Progress monitoring is a key component of an IEP and tiers of support. It is crucial that we have a clear understanding of what the student has mastered and what specific skills they need additional support with in order to best provide high quality, effective instruction. This should be happening in all tiers. We included a slide on data-based individualization because it ties to the recommendations from national organizations about how to best support our striving readers. Allowing for a continuous cycle of progress monitoring and adjusting ensures positive literacy growth.
In Tier 3, IEP progress monitoring is completed by the IEP case manager and represents the evidence or artifacts the team uses to determine progress and attainment of goals. This information could be collected through observation data, curriculum-based assessments, student work samples, formative assessments, and other methods. The progress is collected over time and required to be communicated to families during the designated grading periods unless a different timeline is determined. The progress documented by the case manager should provide enough information to identify current levels of performance. This information is also used to develop the IEP the following year.
Tier 2 intervention meetings allow for educators to share progress and decisions moving forward based on data. A consideration we mentioned earlier and want to emphasize in this space is allowing specialists working with students on IEPs to also share progress and decision-making so that all who are involved know up-to-date focus areas for continued instruction. In Tier 1, general education teachers need to have a clear understanding of what specifics are on the IEP in order to best support all learners in their classrooms when it comes to progress monitoring. Teachers give a variety of assessments and need to know what specifically needs to be addressed when administering these assessments. Does the student need access to text via a read aloud option? Does the student need access to speech to print in order to create a written response? What specifically does each student need to complete unit assessments and common formative assessments? These are important to reflect on and to decide as a team in order to best support positive outcomes for our students on IEPs. When thinking about progress monitoring across the tiers, begin by thinking about how and when you collect data and how that data is analyzed to determine next best steps. What instructional adjustments should be made to better promote strong literacy growth?
So what does communication look like across all of the tiers? Often we find that communication may only be happening between the IEP case manager and the family when progress notes are mailed during student conferences and annual IEP meetings. What we hope is that districts can begin to think about how to improve their frequency of communication about student progress with all team members over time. What would it look like to communicate progress and considerations of adjustments to the student, their teachers, and to the family? What are the benefits of better communication regarding this progress? This might look like communicating through email, monthly check-in meetings, progress logs, and perhaps other methods. Additional communication strategies to consider would be to identify grade level benchmark for skills being taught, specify the gaps in developing strong literacy skills that need to be addressed, determine appropriate rate of progress, and discuss the considerations that should be made to ensure adequate progress towards goals.
Here's another pausing point to give you a chance to stop the video and have a conversation with your team. Take a few minutes to discuss how are IEP goals and progress being shared with general education teachers, support staff, students, and family members now? What could be in place to support IEP goals outside of that designated specially designed instruction time? We are so grateful for an opportunity to collaborate with you via this video module and hope that it created space for your team to reflect on current practices and to respond with positive shifts in systems. We know that when done with intentionality and fidelity, the plan should work. That collective efficacy ensures all are on the same page to support positive student growth in literacy, and that this process takes time and expertise, which requires a deep level of deliberation. In closing, we want to thank you for having us come and be a part of your school district and encourage you to reach out to either one of us if you have questions about the specifics related to these considerations.